Welcome to another episode of the Hey Mama podcast. Welcome to another season. This season is all about how we ... And today's episode is all about how we create more love and connection in our family.
It's such an important value of both of ours, coming from disconnected family upbringings and childhood. Both of us had parents that separated, so it was a real bond for us when we first got together, as you would have heard in other episodes. So very important one that I feel we have really worked on, and quite proud. I'm really quite proud of what we've done.
Yeah, I remember having these values and wanting to talk about them, but when the kids were younger, and I feel like we didn't have proof of concept until now, and they're just absolutely crushing being little kids.
That's right.
And I look at their lives and I'm like, oh man, I wish I had their life.
Yeah, I remember your sister, when she was staying with us for a little bit, said, I want to be 3 again, but I want to be Logie 3 again. And I feel the exact same way. And you're right, it doesn't come out straight away that there's proof that this is happening, but there's little wins in the moments.
And we knew.
But then
we knew we were on the right path.
Now when we look back from, when did we really start to hone in on this, was during COVID, I would probably say.
I think that gave us more momentum.
More momentum and more
time.
There's more time, there's more space. There was a particular book that I picked up that I was actually, this is the second book where we got these tips from that we'll talk about today. It was the actual, so I picked up the first book and I really liked it, but it was very heavy. And thinking, how are you going to implement all of this stuff, and how is it going to be sustainable and realistic? And then I picked up the second book of it, and it was much more simplified and much more into the really juicy, important details and where you were able to choose from.
So we're going to share the title of the book with you at the end. So you have to stick around and listen to us chat for the next half an hour to find out what book that is. But I remember you picking up a book in Fiji. We only had Miri at the time, and it was called How to Be a Good Parent. And I remember looking at that title and thinking, what the hell is she picking that book up for? She's already a good parent in my eyes. So do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's always been such a big forefront in my mind, such a big value of, okay, when I become a parent, and I do that in a lot of things in life, like how can I be better? How can I improve? And I don't shut off to that sort of growth. And I've always thought, how can I be a better parent? And and I love that when we first got together, you thought I was just such an amazing, wonderful parent. And that means the world to me, because it's the biggest compliment anyone could give me. And you did think I was the fun one, I was the let things go and don't get hung up on the small, don't sweat the small stuff. And I did really want to be that kind of parent and think, where do I need to parent, and where do I sort of allow them to just be kids? And I mean, with just having one child, you can do that a little bit easier than when you have two, or I can only imagine when you have multiple, your patience, your time and all of that wears a bit thinner. And so, picking up that How to Be a Good Parent, reading some of the stuff in it and getting a little bit of knowledge from there and a little bit of stuff from there. And then, when the second one comes along and your patience, you're tired, your patience wears a little bit thin, you do things that you say you would never do, and you act a way that you think you would never act, or you swore to yourself that you would never act. So then you go back to the drawing board and take a look at yourself and think, okay, how I need to fix this. There are some bad habits coming out in me. There is some nagging. There is my kids don't listen to me, so I feel like I didn't have a connection. And that is one of my worst fears as well, is when they grow up, is are they going to disconnect from me because of their childhood, or are we going to lose a relationship because they aren't, really attached or resent anything? So these are all big fears I could go on about. So that's what holds me there as well, and that's what holds me to the awareness. That's what holds me to let's pick up this book, or let's read this on Instagram or something, and does it resonate with me? So I found that Miri especially, but Lois is a little she was so fun. She was such a funny little kid as well. She had her own, this is who I am, and I just thought, how can I have what sort of tactics can I put in place where we have this love, this connection, this attachment, and that they actually value what I say and they want to listen to me, where I don't have to resort to yelling, I don't have to resort to nagging, and that they genuinely just want to be able to do what is required when it's required, but then also allow them to still be kids. Yeah,
it's a juggling act. And before we dive into like all of the tactics that we've learned about and then we've also implemented, I wanted to dive into the 1 to 2 thing, like going from one child to a second child. In that transition, you're going from, and I talk about this a lot, is that you're going from the skills and the mindset and the tools of a parent with one child to going into now, the same tools, the same resources, the same knowledge, but having 2 children. It's such a big transition. You're adding, another 100% more workload, more things to think about. Like this is a lot. So you go from being, all right, I've got this shit, to holy shit, I don't have this shit. And then you have this stress, and then out of stress you react rather than act. And that reaction, where do you think that comes from? Like, you've always said that you never wanted to act a certain way, but then you start seeing yourself act the way that you've never wanted to act. I know I do that. I see it coming from the way that I was parented, and I'm repeating old behaviors that I've picked up on and learnt. And then would you say that's true for you too?
Oh, 100%. And it's only when you create that awareness and you go, I'm hearing that come out of my mouth, which I promised myself I wouldn't. Or, this is happening, and it does take you back to your childhood for sure. So I picked up that book during the 2020, I think. Don't quote me, but I had the time, I had the space, and I had to also, we're homeschooling, then we're also running a business, and also, making sure we're maintaining our health and all this kind of thing. So it was important to pick up a book like that and see what kind of tactics that we could do, because the title, it had in, how to get your kids to, what was it? To listen without nagging, yelling. And
how did you come across the book?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
I don't remember.
Oh, so
do you remember?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I remember, because you found this person online.
Yeah.
And you started consuming her content, and then you did a little mini course of hers, and then that's when you learned that she had the book, and you were just like,
it's a different parent.
Are you sure?
Yes. I was going to go on the course.
Her.
Nah.
All right. Well, it was at that time that you were interested.
Yeah.
And by being interested, you came across
the
book.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What were some of the things that the kids were doing at the time that were really ticking you off? I remember Logs laying on the floor chucking a tantrum at 5 p.m. at night time.
Yeah. So that was actually before. It was before the book. It was she was like 3 when she was still doing this. And it was 5, like if you didn't get dinner on the table at 5 p.m., I was in the kitchen trying to, even with food prepping, just trying to get the plates out and put everything on the table. And I would have this kid on the floor just howling or screaming. And it was the worst time of the day that she did that to me. It was the alarm clock. It was like, you don't feed me now. But the thing is, she was a kid that didn't nap during the day. Like she couldn't just lay down and relax and have a little nap. So that's why she was doing that. Miri, I felt, and especially coming from, she's a kid from a separated family, so I'm more in tune with the connection thing as well. And I felt that she wasn't really listening to me or taking me seriously, and I felt that there could be some improvements there. Even though we had a beautiful relationship in the way that when I would put her down to bed, we would lay there and we would talk about our day and what's our favorites. We've always had that. What's your favorite part of the day? And we've had it for a long time. So that's what all I can remember is that not taking me seriously. Like the meme on Facebook. If you hear me yelling of my house, I've already asked these kids 3 times nicely. It's now gotten to that boiling point. And I didn't want to be that parent. I saw it. I didn't want to be like that. So I picked up the book. The first key moment, or the first thing that we implemented, and I talked to you about it as well, and I got you to read the book. So you did read the book once. I've read it about 3 times. I've also passed it on to friends of mine as well, that later on when they've been like, oh, your kids are so amazing, or your kids are so calm and all this kind of thing, I'm like, just have a little read of this book and pick up some cool tools. So the first thing was the 10-minute time. So it came from understanding what they needed from us. Oh, definitely. So how often do we miss those needs? Even as a baby, if I could go back to them being babies, missing their cues of their needs.
Well, when you think about needs, though, you think roof over your head, warm, food, safety. You don't think about maybe this little person wants to be heard, or feel like they belong, or feel like their opinion matters. So it's belonging and significance that really was the piece of the puzzle that goes into everything else you think you need to have there as a parent.
The belonging and significance to me really hit home. Was like, I understand what they're reaching out for, or they're not doing this because they're not getting their needs met. Like they're feeling as though they're just being told what to do all the time, bossed around. Like they go to, and I feel this for kids, like they go to school and they're told to form a line, sit down, sit quietly. They're always they go to hobbies and then they're told to be quiet, listen, learn all the time. And so I really get that. When my inner child, I can understand it, screams out like, oh, give me some sort of freedom. And
make a choice.
And so when I started to see that, I really understood where we'd kind of been going wrong.
And the first thing we implemented was the 10-minute time.
The 10-minute time to get that connection back with allowing them to feel like they have a choice and they have a say in some part of their day.
How hard is that to say, all right, let's go and do 10 minutes, but shut your mouth and not say, oh, I don't want to do that, or oh, we should do this instead.
We have to actually say, let's make a list. You get to choose an activity of 10 minutes where it's totally your choice and we get to do it, just us two. And it is.
So that's how it's structured.
That's how it's structured. And it says in there 2 times a day. So like guys, we started off with 2 times a day in COVID, but as reality hits and structures of the day and workload and everything else that comes with life, you have to then start to think about what's realistic. And realistic, we do 10-minute time probably 3 times a week. 3 to 4
Yep.
times a week. We don't always get it in every day consistently. We aren't perfect with it, but man, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
And these girls crave it, and especially little lows. Like Miri doesn't vocalize it as much, but I know that we know she needs it more than she knows she needs it. And it's such a difference when we reconnect and we do 10 minutes. The changes in the relationship and the changes in the vibe of the household.
Well, I've seen Logie go from being so needy, wanting our attention, and then it being given to her for 10 minutes, and then like a switch, find something to do to occupy herself, and she's off and away for the
or
day.
has the ability to go and do what is required.
Yeah, or that's right.
The 10-minute time is supposed to be a priority as well. So you're supposed to stop what you're doing, give them 10 minutes, and then go back to the things that you need to do. And so that is the number one priority, because then you know that you've given that love.
Yep.
You've given that attention, you've given that belonging and significance, saying, hey, you are important to me. And what you want to do is important as well, to have your own little creation, to have your own little mind.
Yeah.
So huge.
So it wasn't natural to begin with. Even they struggled with coming up with ideas on what to do, didn't they?
Yes, especially Miri, being the older one. We had to tell them to write up a list of things, which is a great idea anyway, of things that we can do in 10 minutes rather than like a whole game of Monopoly or something, even though that sort of still gets pulled out, but we have to stop it at the 10 minutes. And the other thing too is it does give them boundaries and structure with 10 minutes. You know, you don't just say, oh, okay, I'm going to play with you, which is fabulous as well, because when you're a mum and you've got so much stuff to do, or a dad, and you're like, I can't sit here and play on the floor with you right now because I've got to hang the washing out, or the dinner needs to be made, or something else needs to be done. So at least with you in your mind, you've said, okay, I can give you that 10 minutes, my full attention with nothing else and no one else. And then also it gives them those boundaries too, that, okay, I've got mum, I've got dad for 10 minutes. We're going to, make the most of it. And then when the 10 minutes is up, then they carry on to do something else. Yeah,
you get ready for the rest of the day, or whenever it is in your day.
Yeah, if it's in the afternoon.
Continue on with the jobs.
But I want to pull back actually when I say the 10-minute time. We do the 10-minute time of their games, like 3 to 4 times a week, but every night we're in there spending 10 minutes, significant time with them, like one-on-one attention or reading. That is still a part of
so we've got to have a fit fam blend. It's not all about this book. We've got things that we've brought into this as well that have really just made it work for us.
Yes,
and that's one thing is reading. You've always made that a priority.
Always such a priority. And another thing to think about as well is even in the car, turn the radio off, turn the music off, or whatever it is you're listening to when you pick them up from school, and it's complete. How was your day? What are 3 things that I don't know about your day? And then that opens up the conversation, and that opens up connection time as well. In the bath, you can sit there and you can talk to them, or you can spend time with them, you can play with them in the bath. That is just that sort of one-on-one, undivided attention.
You know what Logie said to me today?
What?
She goes, Daddy, as I put her up on the kitchen bench over there, I'm such a curious baby. And as you're talking about all the questions that we ask them throughout the day, and how we have them in this habit of reading, and we have them, have the ability to ask, to tell us what they want to do for 10 minutes. Like, it really shows that, yes, you are a curious baby, because you have all of these little things that make you who you are, because they're intertwined in her life in a day. And Miri, she doesn't sit up on a kitchen table and say, I'm such a curious baby, but she is. She wants to know how things work. She wants to listen, and she wants to learn, and she wants to seek out new
and question everything. She said that this morning.
Yeah,
she repeated.
That's just curiosity.
Question everything, Mum.
Yeah,
and I was like, I teach you. I say, there's no harm in questioning everything. So the belonging and the significance as well is, an example of when we went to the supermarket. I got it on video as well, and it's not just the one time on the video, it has happened quite a few times, but I let Logie, I just slowed down. This is a really key thing with mums, because we're always in a rush, we're always on to the next thing, and we've got 10,000 tabs open in our minds. And to slow down, and she wanted to do the checkout, the self-service checkout. So I allowed her to beep them, put them over, and even, learning how to press the buttons and tap the card and all that kind of thing. And she's been helping with the groceries since she was a baby. And it's something that, with the first child and learning, Miri didn't get to experience that quite as much as me going, I'm just going to slow down and take my time with this. It was on to the next thing and keep her busy and make sure that she's enrolled in this class. And,
Yeah, definitely. Heaps of examples. Like I've got this picture in my head now of them on the trolley as we're going around the shopping centre, and Logie's holding on with both hands and her feet are on the bottom of the trolley and she's doing a bridge, and then Miri's got both these two lanky arms around Logie, and they're pushing each other around the shops. And I remember back in the day it would have been like frowned upon.
Oh, probably
having your
is still
kids pushing the trolley around, and it probably still is. But we do it anyway.
Yeah, we do it anyway. I've got it.
Belonging is significance. Cool. So let's talk about some other things to wrap this up. What are some other cornerstone habits that we have in our household that allows us to connect and really love hanging out with each other?
So it's the family meeting is amazing. It has been, even when we first started, it was such a kerfuffle, and it was such a we all don't know what we're doing, and this is how it's supposed to be. And then we invented the talking stick. We had the talking stick, and then people would tell, one person would tell the other person off because you're talking and you don't have the talking stick. So
the talking stick is, if you hold the stick, you can talk.
Yeah.
If you don't have the stick, then...
Yeah, and they use it in schools and stuff as well. It was a great tool, but it's such a beautiful way for the family to come together. We do it on a Sunday evening or afternoonish, depending on what we're doing. Even last week on Mother's Day, we were driving back from Mooloolaba, and Pete called the family meeting in the car, and it was fantastic. We've even gotten to a stage where the kids will call the meeting and say, we're having a family meeting, and they absolutely love it and thrive off it, and they get excited about it. Miri told a friend once, we have a family meeting on Sunday. Is that where they just tell you off? Or does that mean that you're in trouble? And she had to explain the routine of the family meeting and how it's actually fun and it's positive and it sets us up for the week, and then we finish off with a game.
So if you read this book, there will be a part of the family meeting called grievances, and that was probably one of the first things that we adapted. We adapted the grievances into what did we do? We called it things that you can work on. And we've gotten to a point now when
we don't even actually
do that.
I was going to say, the grievances are out. Then we tried, and you're right, we tried to change it and spin it a bit differently. Spin it a bit differently because it was just such negativity, and we didn't we didn't want it to turn into a lecture and things like that. So we want the tools that we're already implementing in everyday life. That is, learning tools and all that. With the kids, they're doing pretty much what they need to be doing anyway, but we don't need to say it in the meeting and start banging on, because that's not how kids work, and that's not how kids
definitely not
listen.
how Miri works.
Definitely not how Miri works. And little Logs will shame. She will shame. She has that tendency to shame. So I'm like, I'm not going to sit there and tell her off. So we actually don't even have grievances or troubles or whatever.
So let's talk about the actual structure of the meeting. How do we start?
So we start with the compliments, and we all love that, and we're getting better and better at it. I think it's such an important tool for people and kids especially, to know how to take a compliment, but also know how to give one, and a constructive compliment. So this has been such a growing thing for us as a family. We look forward to it now. It used to be that the kids were like, oh, they'd get worried about it when it was their turn, but now they're actually saying, oh, can I go first? No one's worrying about going first, whereas before it was really like, okay, I'm either going to have to start or you're going to have to start. We talk about what's on for the week and we get our diaries in order.
We've added the Google Calendar.
The Google Calendar. We've added the Google Calendar. We talk about it, and it actually stops any anxiety in any of them, especially kids. We've got sensitive kids. It stops the anxiety of what is coming up and they know what to expect about the week. We also get the opportunity to give meal suggestions. What would you like to eat this week? If somebody wants homemade pizza or something, then we schedule it in for a Friday night, and that's really fun.
We use our cookbook for that.
We use the cookbook. We open up the cookbook. There was a video, and you put it on the story the other day of Miri looking through the cookbook to get more fresh ideas. But then other times they'll just know what we have been having and that they like it, or they say, can we bring back tacos? Then we finish up with
game time.
A game. So we take turns each week that somebody gets to decide on a game. Yeah,
so we'll play hide and seek, or we'll play thumbs up, thumbs down, or we'll play a variety of different games.
Painting faces.
Yep, we've done that.
What's another thing, like a statue, even some warped games that the girls are doing.
Like Keep You Uppy, or those kinds of things.
That's another great tool that has worked really well and makes the run of the household really smooth and a lot less overwhelming.
And then our beautiful time before we go to bed. Let's talk about that before we move on to this last little one.
This is us.
When and then.
Yeah. So
the nighttime is
has been ours for a very long time, and we used to do it with Miri. But now Logs is older as well. It's a whole family thing. Like, I actually used to just do it with Miri. When I'd go in and put her to bed, I would say, what was your favorite thing about today? And and then when the girls moved in together in the same room and Logs can talk and everything, we implemented it with everyone. But we used to say, what was your favorite thing about your day? We have now changed it to, what 3 things are you grateful for about your days? And then now you've just added, after the 3 grateful things, what have you done for yourself? And I think it's beautiful. The girls have adapted it like that. They really like it, and they got to think about what they did for themselves.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard to actually think about what you've done for yourself for the day. All of this is great, but as we know, you have structure and plans, but they don't always go to plan. So when you're out in the battlefield of life and there is an behavior that you don't necessarily want, what do you do if all the tools available just aren't working? Because that happens, hey.
Yeah. Of course it happens, and of course there's nothing is ever like perfect, nor do we implement everything perfect either. That's just like a diet and exercise program. You can't be perfect all the time. And there's just a couple of sayings like, for example, Logs fluffs around in the morning. We've got to try and see what actually works for her in the way that she needs like a cuddle, or she needs some sort of like connection, physical touch in the morning.
Totally her love language.
Yeah, it is, to get her moving and to get her doing things. But there's also tools in sayings, the way that you can say things like, when you have made your bed and gotten dressed, then you may do this. Or when you have eaten your breakfast, so it's the when, and then you may,
go and play.
Go and fluff around, whatever she likes to do. I'm just calling her a fluffer right now because she's such a little fluffer, like practicing gymnastics. There's an example. Yes. Then you may go and practice the gymnastics and do a cartwheel.
There's a cartwheel stage, isn't there, when they just do nothing but cartwheels. And it's like you've got to really just capture their attention and say, when you do this, then you can
go
doing
do your cartwheels. So that's just another tools, but I think we're going to wrap it up there.
What's it
and
called?
Give away the book. So the book is called the Me Me Epidemic, and how to get your kids to listen without yelling or nagging.
And it's written by Amy McCready. We'll link it in the description of the video. It's been a very valuable book. It's basically formed a part of the very few handful of expert written books that we've really introduced into our lives and then also kept it, but also promoted it. Like everything we do comes through this house before it goes out the other side, and we talk about it on something like a podcast.
Or we teach it in our coaching programs.
We implement the learnings and the teachings in the Fit Fem cookbook. Like that kind of stuff really has to be tested before it goes out there, and the Me Me Epidemic is definitely a big influencing piece of material that we've used. And it's so important. We've probably nerded out on it because we are so into keeping ourselves healthy and well. By nerding out on this, we've created enough space in family life, enough time in family life, and enough flow in family life for us to still be able to do things like work out, run a business, and
have
X,
food
Y, Z.
readily available,
Everything
have the family on board. They are key ingredients for the whole family to be fit fam.
And it's the biggest stumbling block for mums and dads who want to get into shape and not in shape yet, is that they just don't have these things flowing right throughout the house yet.
And with the coaching program, we help implement it step by step. It's not just like when I read the book at first, I was like, whoa, how am I going to be able to implement all of this as well as everything that we do in life? So it's a step by step process for sure. So thanks for listening, and we hope that you got some really great tips. An action task is try the 10-minute time with your kids. So just one-on-one with one of your kids, and especially if you have more than one or two, you can do it on different days, and they can have their special day, and they will feel so they will feel like they belong, and they will feel so significant, and it empowers them, and it allows you to have a household that runs a lot smoother and a lot less stressful, and a lot more love and a lot more fun.
Beautiful. Tell us how you go with it in the comments, and for the next episode we're introducing a Q&A section. So if you have questions that you want answered on these podcasts, we're going to start taking 5 or 10 minutes at the end of each episode to answer questions from listeners and viewers. So if you want your question to be featured in the next episode, comment wherever it makes sense to comment below, and we'll make sure we answer it for you. See ya.
Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Mama. You can find all the relevant links, including socials, in the description section of this podcast. If you want to find out more information about how I can help you build your best body after babies, then visit my website, www.thefitmummethod.com, for more info. Lastly, before you leave here today, if you've enjoyed listening, then please subscribe and share so you can help me to reach out to those mamas that also need to listen too.